All right, so conventional deadlift, guys.
Get over there. Get over there.
Today we're going to go over the execution of the conventional deadlift. The superior deadlift, no matter what he says.
Amen.
Exactly. That's right. The best way to show your strength. So, of course, we're going to start from the top down.
Yep.
Correct.
That's how I like to do things.
Okay.
If I'm teaching somebody how to conventional deadlift or sumo deadlift, I like to use a top-down approach. You've probably heard us say that a few times now. If you've watched our other videos, if you haven't, go watch them because you kind of need to in order to watch this video. So, yeah, so this is how I would teach just an average Joe Schmo how to conventional deadlift. So,
Hi, I'm Joe Schmo.
because remember, these are just general starting guidelines, all right? It's okay to have a different setup than what we post here in our videos. This is just a good starting point for people. So, talking about top-down approach, so Ranson's set up and everything, like he's done everything he needs to in his setup. You know, the bar's over his midfoot. He's externally rotating at the hips. He's getting his arms long here. He's making sure that he's got everything ready to go here. He's got his lats tight. He's bracing. Comes down to the bar, hinges to the bar, and he starts transferring tension as soon as he grabs the bar. So from here, what we're going to focus on, again, is still the top-down approach. We're going to start with the upper back to the lats, then to our obliques, then hips, then quads, right? We're going to run through that checklist as we set up here. So we're going to start with locking in the upper back. So Ranson is going to start the intention of extending his T-spine off the floor here. So that's meaning that he's going to go from rounded over to not rounded over. There, right there, yeah. So you see how he's neutral here now. So that is going to be the intention that we start with. As soon as we grab onto the bar. Grab the bar, start that intention of getting tall. From there, he's going to focus on pushing his lats down to his back pocket. That's the term that I like to use. It's the easiest to get people to understand. So we go from upper back to taking his lats and trying to push them down into his back pocket to get these lats nice and tight here. So next thing that we want to focus on in that checklist is actually a term that I don't know if Ranson came up with that, but he made us all aware of it in our last video that we did. You can go ahead and go over that part if you want to.
Yeah, so that's just going to be taking your elbows to your opposite pocket. So essentially, a lot of people, they'll depress their arms down and depress their scaps down only, or you'll see them just externally rotate. So you want to do both. So the cue that I've heard, I honestly don't remember where I heard it from, but works really well for people is, after you press your arms down, make them long, think of putting your elbow in your opposite pocket, so right elbow to left hip. That way you're externally rotating both sides, and it gets your back very, very, very tight that way. Locks everything in, very secure.
Yeah, so basically, here, I can show if you want.
Yeah.
That way you can talk about it. So what Ranson's talking about here, the difference you're going to see in somebody's setup who is focusing on getting that cueing down is you can pull the slack really well, but you'll be here versus here.
Yeah, so you notice just right here, the distance between his arm and his lat. So if he's not externally rotating at all, and he's just pulling up on the bar here, there's a big gap right here. What he wants to do at the same time as he's, packing his lats is externally rotating, so thinking elbow in opposite pocket. The difference in that change right there is pretty drastic actually. And that's getting all this a lot tighter through here, which is going to make for a better lift
and a better lockout.
And a better lockout because you already had that tension created that you're not going to lose it. That's where a lot of people have a problem. They won't be tight like they should. They'll only have tightness in one direction. So they'll get here, and then their background's over,
Yeah,
and cat back like that.
Yeah, they're out of position once the
Exactly.
ball gets to their knees. Yeah.
Yeah. So they'll cat back, or they'll just be externally rotated, and like times they'll come forward just because they're not tight enough in the back.
And one of the biggest things with doing that is it keeps the bar close to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you are not tight, you're setting yourself up for the opportunity for the bar to get away from you. Mm-hmm. So in setting your lats and bringing your elbow to your opposite pocket, you are then cranking that bar in as close to you as possible, and the bar just follows you up.
There's a reason people use baby powder, because you want to keep that bar as close as you can.
Right, and something important to note is that, like what he's saying, like what everybody's saying, is that is the intention of keeping the bar close to your body. You don't want to actively jam the bar up against your body, right? We want space there because, just like we talked about in previous videos, we want that bar to stay over midfoot so we actually have space to wedge in, but we have that intention of keeping the bar close to our body. Like, what are we going to use to keep that bar close to our body? We're going to use our lats, right? So that's what that intention there is, of keep the bar close to your body. Think of like a straight arm pull down, right? We're pulling the bar in, we're keeping it close, we're going to keep it close to our body, and that's where the externally rotating the shoulder comes in. So, and those problems are going to arise at lockout too. If you're not, we talked about that in the last video. People are so focused on, I can get the bar off the floor fast. I can get the bar off the floor fast. Well, that doesn't matter if you get the lockout and you're not able to finish the lift. So,
and a lot of these problems don't, you don't see them until you get to a higher percentage weight of like 80% or above. You can have a deadlift look as easy as possible and get great as possible at like 50 or 60%. So you're not really going to see that technical breakdown until you get to that heavier weight. But practicing it every time, no matter how light the weight is very important. That way you have the muscle memory at every weight that it's locked in, it's good to go. So when you get to that heavy weight, it's not going to feel as heavy.
all right, so the next thing that we're going to go over for you with talking about the execution and going down this checklist of wedging into the bars, we're going to talk about head position. So talking about like the elbows in the back pocket, in the opposite back pocket, packing our lats down, all that. What we're trying to accomplish there is we're trying to keep our shoulders in line with the bar, right? We want to keep our shoulders directly over the bar for as much of the lift as possible. The only time we're going to be slightly behind the bar is once the bar passes our knees and we're actually locking the weight out, but we're still going to be pretty in line with the bar. So now what I mean, again, I'm reiterating things we've already talked about, but what I mean by shoulders directly over the bar is not the front of the shoulder here, right? If the front of your shoulder is over the bar, that means you're behind the bar.
And look what happens to my hips when I do that. If I have it just in line with my shoulders, I'm down here. First thing that's immediately going to happen to me is my hips shoot up.
Yep, his hips are going to shoot up and he's going to go forward, right? And then he's going to be out of position once the bar passes his knees. So we just talked about that a minute ago. About doesn't matter how fast you are off the floor. If you're out of position when it comes time to lock the weight out, doesn't matter. So what we're doing here, like I said, is we are trying to prevent the issue of pitching forward off the floor. That's all these different things we're talking about. Head position, elbows in opposite back pocket, packing your lats down. What we're doing this is what we are trying to accomplish by doing this is keeping the top of the shoulder blade directly over the bar the entire time, which is going to help us keep that bar over our midfoot, which is going to allow for an even distribution of force from the front of our body and the back side of our body. So really, really easy way to figure out if you're not directly over the bar or not is just look at the opening of your armpit. That is a good rule of thumb to go off of to keep yourself directly over the bar. Opening of your armpit, all right? Directly over the bar. If you're watching from the side, we should have a straight line here. So now going in with that, the head position like we talked about, with sumo we talked about having more of like a head up position and leading with the head and getting tall to the floor. With conventional, we're going to go more the other route, which we also talked about in the sumo video, of having a neutral head position and focusing on packing the chin back. This is going to help us with our shoulder depression of like packing our lats down and getting as compact here in our torso as possible. If Ranson were in his start position here and he were to pull and he were to look up off the floor, first thing that's going to happen, he's going to pull and his shoulders are going to come forward. Right? The body wants to follow the head. So if you have your head and chin out in front of you in the start of your conventional deadlift, you're likely going to pitch forward. So we want to keep that head down and we want to think about pushing that chin straight back. Let go of the bar a little bit, but stay in that position. Yeah. So when Ranson does that and he pushes his chin back, he's able to bring his shoulders back with it. It's a lot easier. So try to like bring your shoulders back while looking up.
It's very difficult.
It's a lot more awkward. It feels a little bit more unnatural. So to make it easier for him to get that external rotation at the shoulder and packing those lats down. We're gonna keep that head neutral and we're gonna just focus on pushing the chin back. So now that we've gone over that, it's time to get this bar off the ground. So he's come down, he's set up, right? He's done everything perfectly. Kind of slow it down here a little bit. Next thing that I want Ransom to do here when I'm having him think about wedging into the bar is he kind of showed earlier how sometimes people will typically just rock back onto their heels. And they'll get, in doing so, they're actually getting their hips farther away from the bar. We want to get those hips as close to the bar as possible. Even though it's not a sumo deadlift, we still want to wedge those hips in. So we need to imagine that the hips are the fulcrum point, and we need to anchor from there. So what we're going to do instead to get those hips closer to the bar is I'm going to tell Ransom to push his knees into the bar, right? So when we go to pull off the floor here, Ransom's knees should be over the bar. We should not see his knees behind the bar here. So this is going to help us get some more help from the quads off the floor, and it's going to keep his hips from shooting up. So we're thinking push the knees forward, and now we're going to cue push the floor away, right? So he's going to go through everything here. Yep, everything's perfect. Push the floor away and stand tall. So notice when Ransom stands up, he doesn't overextend at the top. He's just standing straight up. So
Yeah, a lot of people problem will have is like they get to the top of deadlift, and they can't quite lock it out, or they're not, squeezing their glutes, so they'll just try and lean back, and look what happens when we lean back.
yep, your knees come unlocked.
My knees come unlocked. It's not going to be a good lift. Your knees have to be locked, shoulders in line with your knees and everything else, everything stacked and locked.
Yep, we want to push.
Not here.
Yep, we want to push the floor away. We want to drive through our quads, right? We should feel our knees lock out when we stand up. You should not come up like this, as Ransom just demonstrated. If you're coming up and if you don't feel anything coming from your knees, then we need to focus a little bit more on driving through the quads, snapping those knees almost, and then once we get there and we stand tall, we want to squeeze the glutes through to get a full lockout. So
When he's pushing his knees forward, he's pushing them forward and out.
forward and out.
Forward and out to create that torque and tension.
Good.
It's also kind of the same thing along with squats. You're not really thinking of pushing your knees out per se. The external rotation is coming from the hip.
Yes.
Yep, exactly.
And that's where, squeezing the glutes, it's more so just externally rotating at the hip, which yes, your glutes are going to squeeze and activate that way, but it's also creating a lot of tension through the rest of your legs as well.
So you can see like right here when you're standing there, if I just squeeze my glutes, everything starts to turn outwards.
Yep.
And that's what you want. Not that, I don't mean to push like that, just squeeze the glutes and everything will push out.
Yes.
And sometimes you'll see people, they'll actually get knee cave in their deadlift. And that's because they're not creating that external rotation at the hip. So sometimes when people pull, you'll see their knees come in just like you would with the squat. So create that torque at the hips, externally rotate, drive your big toe into the ground, and push out.
Yep.
Because he's talking about playing your cards in the right order in previous videos. You can think of it, if you plan your day with a checklist, right? And everybody's done this. You have all these checks. You have 10 checks, and you're supposed to do them at a certain time. Well, if you get to the end of your day and you have 9 things left, you're not going to get everything done. If you get to the top of your lockout and you didn't hit those check marks down here, you're going to try and compensate with different ways, and it's not going to get done. It's too late.
Your body's going to follow the path of least resistance.
Yes.
So whatever is there to help you get the job done is what you're going to have to dip into. And when you're standing at the top of a conventional deadlift and you're out of position, the only thing that's going to be there to help you is your lower back. So check all your boxes, one thing at a time. A fast start is not necessarily a good start. So we're going to want to run through this one more time.
Yep.
Just demonstrate it pretty quick. So Ransom's going to come down. He's grabbing that bar with intention. He's immediately going to start focusing on extending his T-spine. Yep. We'll cut that out. We'll redo that part. You just go through it.
And he's standing tall.
Good. Yep. That is an efficient conventional deadlift.
And last thing to mention is a lot of issues that you'll see at lockout will arise from the bottom. So if you are not setting up properly and checking off all of those boxes at setup, you're likely going to have issues at lockout.
So watch our setup video if you don't.
That's right.
All right.
And thus concludes our squat, bench, and deadlift series.
Yep.
So we've hit on all the basics. We're going to take a little week intermission, and we're going to come back with some really fun and exciting things that aren't so basic. And we're going to really get into the details of this stuff. So come back in a couple weeks to see what we got in store for you.
Yeah.
Some shameless plugs. We got our Feed Me, Fight Me stuff. Our boys at SBC Barbell, they come out with some really cool stuff. Check them out. And I mean, our Gen Strength stuff's pretty cool too. I'm just saying. So yeah, well done, boys and girls.
Let's do it.
And if you have any ideas for content that you would like to see in future videos, drop a comment below.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
always welcome.
Whether
Absolutely.
it's something to do with the actual lifts, whether it's stuff for coaching, possibly nutrition advice.
Mentality.
Yeah,
Anything you want to see, you let us know.
drop it in the comments. Share the videos with people you know. Kind of get the word out.
Yep. Like, subscribe, notify.
All that stuff.
Absolutely.
Thanks for sticking it out with us. And
Yeah.
we'll be back with more exciting content.
Later.